All right. And there was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Schwartz. And this is talking about in the time of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away in 1950. So this was, you know, this was before, a little bit before that. So Rabbi Schwartz, he came from Hungary. And he was very close to the rabbis over there. This is, of course, after the Holocaust, the whole world was upside down. And he wanted to know what to do. He was a rabbi, and he was he could lead a congregation, but he spoke Hungarian, he spoke Yiddish, of course. So he came to America. One of the most prominent rabbis and one of the most available rabbis in America was the Chabad, was the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. So he went to him for advice. And he said, what should I do? I'm a teacher, I'm a rabbi, I can lead a congregation. So the previous Rebbe said, you should go to my son-in-law and ask him. And that time they called the Rebbe, they called him the Ramash. Ramash is Rabbi Menachem Schneerson. They called him the Ramash. That was before he was Rebbe. So he said, okay. So he went to the Rebbe's son-in-law, which of course that's our Rebbe. And he said, I think you should go to Brazil. I'm not exactly sure what the order was, but it could be that there's a girls' school in Brazil and they need a teacher, and you should go there and you should take the job. So he said, Brazil, what in the world, Brazil, he doesn't, he doesn't know what is in Brazil. They speak Portuguese. He doesn't know Portuguese. What's he going to go down there? But nevertheless, that was the only advice that he had. So he went, maybe he called up or whatever. Anyway, he went down there and he got some phone numbers to call up. He went down there and he took the job, and he discovered that he had a knack for learning languages, and he learned Portuguese very quickly. And the school, it grew. And it grew greater and greater. I think that in the end, it said in the story that he had like 2,000 girls that learned there. I mean, you have no idea what a life-saving thing this is, because in Brazil, there's a very high rate of intermarriage. The Brazilian, how do you say, character, the people in Brazil are very friendly. They're very open. They're very easygoing, and so it's very easy that, to melt the barriers that the Torah gives between the Jewish people and the non-Jewish people. Intermarriage, it's not even intermarriage, just marrying a person. So all these girls that he took and he educated them for Judaism, this was saving, who knows how many hundreds, thousands of families. Was it 2,000? I don't know, maybe it was only 200 girls, but even if it was 2 girls, it was enough. But anyway. So it succeeded. It's succeeding down there. Meanwhile, the previous Rebbe passed away. And he kept in contact with the Rebbe. The Rebbe was the one who gave him the advice in the beginning. So, one day, they came into his office, a couple, a man and a woman, people in their, let's say, their 40s, whatever, well-dressed and crying, Rabbi, you have to help us. What's wrong? Our daughter wants to get married to a non-Jew. And they said, I know what you're thinking, Rabbi. We also are not religious, observant Jews. We're not observant Jews, but we're Jews. And we know that a Jew is not supposed to get married to a non-Jew. And, we don't want it to happen. He's a nice boy, wonderful, a good person. But, we don't want our daughter to marry a non-Jew, and we don't know what to do. Is there anything that you can do, Rabbi? Can you help us in any way? So he said, well, listen, I can try. I don't know if he had ever been confronted with such a problem, but he certainly was aware that the problem exists. And he certainly knows about Judaism, and he was certainly a very pleasant person, knows how to speak to others, and he can appreciate the situation. So he said, I'm willing to talk to your daughter. So they said, oh, thank you, Rabbi. That's so wonderful. We call her up, and I'll arrange a meeting. So they call her up, and he says, hello, this is Rabbi Schwartz. And your parents are here. And I would, if possible, I would like to talk to you. Can I just talk to you? She said, sure, no problem, Rabbi, no problem. We can meet at such and such a place. So he went over. It couldn't even be at her house. She had an apartment. And they left the door open and everything. And the rabbi came in and she said, here, I brought some cakes for you. You know, it's kosher. I went to the store. And so he gives her this whole big talk about Judaism and how special Judaism is and how Jews have suffered because of Judaism and how wonderful Judaism is and how good it is. And she marries this, young man that the education of the children is going to be at stake, and that it's not going to work, and the Jewish intermarriages don't work so well, and etc. So he's speaking and speaking. So she said, okay, have you finished, Rabbi? So he saw that it sort of wasn't working. He said, well, just one more thing. And he said, anyway, after about 20 minutes of this, so she said, okay, have you finished, Rabbi? So he said, yes. That's what I've got to say. He said, listen, it was a very wonderful, I really appreciate you coming, she said. And it was a very wonderful, you told me a lot of things that I do not know and I wasn't aware of. And I was very, very impressed by what you said. But I love Jose, and he loves me. And so, you already have a wife. You're already married. I'm not married. And why shouldn't I get married to him? I just love him. Your reasons are very nice and they're very convincing, but it's not strong enough to make me change my, all of a sudden, I'm going to be like you. So thank you very much, but no thank you. Okay, so the rabbi left, and he left, brokenhearted, and he went back to his office. So he's thinking, really feeling bad about it. So suddenly he says to himself, wow, why didn't I call the Lubavitcher Rebbe? I can call the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I can, maybe he'll give me advice. So he calls the Lubavitcher Rebbe's office. And he tells them the whole story. He speaks not to the Rebbe. He speaks to one of the Rebbe's secretaries. I think it was Rabbi Chodakov. He speaks to him, and he says, just one moment. And he comes back, and he says, Rabbi Chodakov says, I spoke to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said that you should speak to her again. And you should tell her that because she's going to get married to a non-Jew, is that there is a rabbi in New York that he can't sleep at nights. So this Rabbi Schwartz is thinking to himself, what type of an argument is that? I mean, I've already exhausted everything I could. In fact, I even came up with new ideas I didn't even think I had. And now I'm going to tell her that there's a rabbi that can't sleep. What does that mean? Why should that convince her? And he said, a rabbi that can't sleep at night in New York. Who is the rabbi? So the Rebbe, all of a sudden, he heard the Rebbe's voice, and it says, he's called Schneerson. So he realized that the Rebbe was listening to the whole thing, and that the Rebbe was saying that he couldn't sleep at night because of this girl, and he should tell her. So he says, okay. He's going to follow what the Rebbe says, picks up the phone, calls the girl, and says, hello. Yes, hello. This is Rabbi Schwartz. Oh, hello, Rabbi Schwartz. Listen, I'd like to talk to you again. Just a very short amount of this. Listen, Rabbi. Enough. Please. Don't, how do you say, tartara, don't, how do you say, haunt me. Don't haunt me. We already spoke. I was very nice to you. I listened to everything that you said. Right? I took off my time from and energy, and I was very appreciative of my speech. But we already concluded that's enough. you can't keep bothering me all the time. Please, Rabbi, leave me alone. He said, listen, all I want to do is talk to you for 3 minutes and say something you didn't hear. 3 minutes, I promise, and I'll never call you again. Please, I beg of you, just 3 minutes. She said, 3 minutes? Yes. She said, okay. I work in a place that's near where my parents live. At my lunch break tomorrow, I'll leave my place of work. I'll go to my parents' house. We'll meet there, but for 3 minutes, do you hear? And then I'm going to go back to work. And you're never going to call me again. I promise, I swear. It's my word. As a rabbi, I promised you I will. Okay. So they did it. The next day, he was there waiting for her. She comes in, doesn't even take off her coat. Yes, Rabbi, what do you have to say? You have 3 minutes. So he says, because you want to marry a non-Jew, as there's a rabbi in New York that can't sleep at night. I left out one little detail. I left a detail out. He did not call the Rebbe's office immediately. It was like a week later. He felt very bad. And then a week later, Rabbi Schwartz said, why didn't I call the Rebbe? And he called a week later. And that's when everything happened. Good. And the Rebbe said, you should sell him to somebody that can't sleep at night. So he goes, she says to the girl, okay. So she says, you have something to tell me? Yes. 3 minutes, Rabbi. And then, yes. What is it? He said, because, here's his throat. Because you want to marry a non-Jew, there's a rabbi in New York that can't sleep at nights. And she looks at him and says, listen, Rabbi, you're out of your mind. You're totally nuts. Well, that's what you brought me over here to tell me, that there's a rabbi that he can't sleep at nights. And therefore, I'm supposed to not get married because of this. I mean, Rabbi, are you insane? I should call the police. Who is this rabbi? She said, oh, I'm sorry. I left out another thing. I'm sorry. I told the story. When he was speaking to the Rebbe, he asked, who is this rabbi? And Rabbi Chodakov said to him, you know him. She knows him. Or she knows this rabbi. I'm sorry, I hope it didn't wreck this one. She knows the rabbi. And then he said, who is this rabbi? And the Rebbe cut in the phone call. Okay. So now she's asking Rabbi Schwartz, who is this rabbi? He said, you know the rabbi. He says to her, you know this rabbi. She said, listen, Rabbi, I only know one rabbi, and that's you, and I regret that I know you. Now leave me alone. He said, I'll show you a picture of him. He runs in the house. Her parents are running around. They find the picture of the Rebbe. She's already at the door about to close it. He brings her the picture of the Rebbe. He says, this is the rabbi. You know him. She looks and she stops. She said, this rabbi can't sleep at night. He said, yeah. He doesn't know what's going on. She takes the paper and she's looking at it. She sits down in the chair. Said, this rabbi told you he can't sleep at night because I'm getting married. He said, yes. And her parents said, what's happening? Why? She said to them, this rabbi has been appearing in my dreams for the last week, begging me not to get married to Jose. He's been appearing to me in my dreams for the last week, begging me not to marry. I thought that maybe I'm dreaming about you because I saw you. So I'm dreaming about you right, coming in your lecture and your thing that you gave to me. I thought that was you. But now I see this picture. I realize that it's Lubavitcher Rebbe. Where does he live? He lives in New York, in Brooklyn. He said, he's been appearing to me. So, okay, I'll reconsider. So she pushed off the wedding for a month, and then they pushed it off, and finally they pushed it off indefinitely. In other words, the story, I'm sorry that I sort of confused the story, but in other words, the story is that the Rebbe saw that this girl was going to marry a non-Jew, and saw from the beginning that this Rabbi Schwartz, years earlier, was going to be the one that was going to link between her and the Rebbe. And the Rebbe actually, don't ask me how he did it, actually somehow or other got into her dreams. The story is written in a lot of places. Into her dreams to plead with her not to marry a non-Jew. So we see on one hand the prophecy of the Rebbe, the care of the Rebbe, the importance of a Jew marrying a Jew, and how that eventually that's the true identity of every Jew, and every Jew will come back to that true identity with the Mashiach. And that's yet another foretaste of what the Rebbe is going to do to redeem all of the Jews in the world and bring them back to their Jewish identity. That's why we need Mashiach now, Yechia Melech. See you all tomorrow.
We want Mashiach now.